we forget that coaching is still fundamentally about helping people develop, helping people get better, improving teams. And I think sometimes we forget about that in our own quest for results, or our own quest for personal, career progression.
Hello and welcome to the UCFB LMA Insight Series. My name's Neil from UCFB, and today I'm going to be speaking to Brighton Hove Albion manager Graham Potter about his life as a Premier League manager and his career beforehand. So Graham, hello and thank you for joining me.
Hi.
Hope I'm not keeping you from anything on transfer deadline day, so I'll be as quick as I can to let you get through and enjoy the business.
No problem.
But I just want to start kind of further back in your career when you were a player. Obviously, you played, experienced the Premier League and also the Conference, obviously now the National League. They're obviously very different experiences as a player. What did you learn in those years that you've been able to take on into your coaching career in the years since?
Oh, wow. Yeah. I mean, as you say, there's quite a difference in terms of experiences from playing in the Premier League to Conference and Championship and League One, League Two. And I played in my career. I was fortunate or unfortunate, depends which way you want to look at it, but fortunate, I think, that I got to play quite a few clubs and also in lots of positions on the pitch. So it gave me a bit of a rounded view, I suppose, of not only football and how it works in terms of the levels, but also just the different roles on the pitch. I played left centre back, left wing back, left midfield, pretty much anywhere really, apart from maybe goalkeeper and centre forward, I think I was. So I think that was a good starting point to experience the game. And then, you just meet loads and loads of different people, different types of managers, different types of coaches. The level itself, you're going from the reserves at the Championship level to first team at a League Two club. I mean, it's almost like a different sport in some ways, how the game's played. So that just, I suppose, that gave me a start point. So then as I got more and more interested in coaching and more interested in leadership and management and started to theorize some of that stuff, it allows you to maybe put some more meat on the bones, if that makes sense. It allows you to theorize your experiences, because at the time, I was just probably, as a player, didn't really think too much about stuff. But as I got more and more into learning and coaching, the things became a little bit more evident, I guess.
You say about obviously playing under different coaches, different managers. Were there any individuals at all that you liked playing for, or there was techniques that you picked up along the way that you're using now?
I think when I look back, even though maybe at the time it wasn't, there was some that I liked more than others. When I look back, I'm just very grateful that I had the experiences with all of them, because in their own way, they helped me become the person I am today. They for good and for bad. And I certainly understand more now I'm doing the job, that it's not so easy to be the coach that's responsible for all the people. And as a player, you're pretty much focusing on yourself. And so, you can be quite unfair sometimes with your opinion of coaches. I remember, if I reflect back as the young Graham Potter, 20-something, probably being a little bit unfair on the managers and the coaches that I work with, because I suppose I can only see the world through my eyes. And as I've got older, I've realised that it's not quite as simple as that. And that in itself has probably taught me a valuable lesson, I think. But from my early days with Terry Cooper, he gave me the opportunity, a fantastic guy.
So in and amongst all those experiences, what are, in your opinion, some of the best qualities that make up a coach, whether it's in the Premier League or further down the pyramid? What are the best qualities that make a coach in football?
Well, it's a really good question. I think my take on that would be, I think you have to really understand yourself. Why you are a coach. I think sometimes, especially when we go into the results bit of the game, we forget that coaching is still fundamentally about helping people develop, helping people get better, improving teams. And I think sometimes we forget about that in our own quest for results, or our own quest for personal, career progression. But I think importantly, you have to understand yourself to then know, okay, when the bad times come, or when things get difficult, you understand your motivations, you understand why you're doing what you're doing. You understand what can take you off the path you want to go on. How then you can take responsibility for how you act. So I think an understanding of yourself is really, really important.
I think it's probably fair to say maybe your route into sort of Premier League management isn't typical of a Premier League manager. And before he was in Sweden, I'm right in saying he went to the Women's World Cup with Ghana, and coached a couple of university teams. I mean, you look back on that now, how vital were some of those experiences in terms of learning your lessons and making you the coach you are today?
Yeah, for me, they were incredibly important. And I always say this, I think when you're starting off on a new skill, and coaching for me was at that point, I was recently retired, 30 years old. I think you do your badges, but you're still a novice at that particular skill of coaching. So I think you need to find somewhere where you can make mistakes, where you can experiment with what you're doing, that you can learn from the experiences you have, that maybe you can theorize, and you can be able to take those experiences with you to another context. And I think that's where the university was just brilliant for me. I think if I'd have gone into a too pressured situation where results would have been more important, then I don't think I would have been as open to learn. I don't think I would have been as open to experiment. I don't think I would have been open to make the mistakes that I did. So I look back on those first 5 years when I was working with the university teams, and I still had a chance to experiment. I still had a chance to organise teams. I still had a chance to do all the stuff that I do today, but an environment that was less pressured and allowed me to make mistakes. And I think that, if I look back on my career, that's probably been the most important thing. I haven't gone from, being released at Macclesfield to work in the professional game. I've sort of gone step by step, and along the way had big enough challenges that have allowed me to grow as a coach, as a person, as a leader, that in the end you're able to deal with the level that you're working at. I think that's, you have to look at the numbers of first-time coaches, how long they last, how many times they get reappointed. It's unfortunately you can't afford to make too many mistakes when you're in the results business, because that's the nature of it. So I think that first 5 years, along with allowing me to educate and do my masters and theorise, like I said, some of the experiences I had as a player, I think that combination was really, really important for me.
Is that kind of journey one that you'd maybe advise young coaches to follow similarly, like maybe some of our students, not maybe jump in at the deep end, as it were, but kind of find their way of doing things maybe a bit low down the pyramid?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no right or wrong way. I don't think there's a specific path that everybody should follow, and my path isn't probably the right one for people out there. And that's the beauty of coach education, coach development. You've got to, again, back to what I said earlier, know yourself, know, okay, what's the right path for you. But I think if you speak to anybody in any profession, and talk to the very elite people in that profession, they haven't started there. They've started probably here, and they've worked up appropriately, and then eventually they get to this point. And I just think that maybe it's ambition, maybe it's just ego, maybe it's whatever it is, or the desire to climb the ladder. Sometimes the level can be the thing that you want to get to, but actually I think if you just strip it back down and go, am I improving? Am I getting better? Am I developing? Then I don't think you should be in such a rush to get anywhere. Just be present, be in the moment, keep improving, and then trust that it's football, it's sport, it's life. That's the beauty of it.
Obviously, a big part of your path was heading much further north up to Sweden with Östersund, and obviously that was incredible success there for you. 4th tier to the top tier, Swedish Cup. What maybe one thing can you put that success down to over those years?
Well, it's not. I couldn't put it down to one thing, if I'm being honest. I think if I was going to theorize it, I would say that we understood the competitive environment that we're in, and realized that we couldn't really compete on conventional terms with that. And it was how we could then create something that was a bit different, that we could align everything to, which gave us an advantage. And from a playing style perspective in Sweden at the time, Swedish football was quite rigid in terms of its 4-4-2. We were a little bit countercultural to that, as an example. Then how we developed the people and the players within our organisation, we used quite creative methods in terms of culture academies and things that have been spoken about a lot in the press. But it was a way of trying to take people out of the comfort zone. It was about attracting people to Östersund with a view to helping their career develop, helping them improve as people, and being part of something that was bigger than just playing football was what we tried to create. And thankfully we could align everything to it. So the values of the club were quite clear. We knew which type of people we wanted to bring and which type of attributes we'd want to bring to the club. And then when they were there, we could sort of say, okay, this is where we see you. This is how we can make you be the best that you can be. But it also helps us fit. It was align the club's values and the club's ambition with the individual. And then obviously like everything else, you need a bit of luck. It's nice to think that we do all this stuff and we're so clever, but the reality of it is you need some luck along the way as well.
Now, what I want to know is, how do you attract players to the freezing conditions of northern Sweden? How do you sell that?
Well, I think it's in stages. At first, we attracted a lot of guys that were literally desperate for an opportunity. So something like David Akam, who was, coming out of the Nike Academy, for example. He never played football. He'd only played college football and been in the Nike Academy, so he was desperate for an opportunity. Jamie Hopkett had been released from York City, so was playing for, I think, Tadcaster Albion in the 9th or 10th tier in British football. So again, they saw it as an opportunity to come and just play football. And then it was important that we selected the right people, because they were there to represent Östersund. They were there to represent the town. It wasn't just a football opportunity, it was a life choice as well. And then as we got on further and further, it was about the playing style. I think the playing style became really, really important for us, because once you can develop a playing style, then players can then recognise that and they can go, okay, I can fit into this. So we took a guy called Mudo Barrow, who was playing for Varberg, who was a team similar level to us, second tier in Swedish football, but he saw how we were playing and I suppose liked that and saw himself in that team. And he saw that we'd sold David Akam by that point. So probably then players can see, okay, there's a career path for me here, maybe. And in the end, we ended up selling him to Swansea City. But those types of stories, creating like I said, a playing style that players identify with and believe in. And then you've got to then, I suppose, not stand in the way of players if they outgrow you, because that's also a way of recruiting the next, bunch of players. So I think that was generally how we try to do it.
I mean, it's not often we hear about British managers going overseas, let alone succeeding in the way you did. But what attracted you to wanting to manage away from England?
Well, I did my 5 years in the university, which, as I said, was really, really valuable to me and really important. But the reality of that end of that 5 years was I was a university coach. Yes, I'd done my degree and I'd done my master's. But in terms of getting back into the professional game in the UK, it was going to be very difficult, because I'd been out of the professional game for 5 years. And, whatever level I was going to go into, people want to know, okay, where are you going to get your players from, that type of stuff. And I was a university coach, really, with a relatively average playing background. So there's nothing for me to get anywhere. So the opportunity came up through a good friend, someone I trust a lot, and he put me in touch with the chairman at Östersund. The chairman at Östersund was looking for a young coach and explained his vision as what he wanted to do, how he wanted to be, what the team and the club would look like. And I don't like to use the word philosophically, but philosophically there was a connection, there was a fit, it seemed like, okay, this at least sounds interesting. And it was a choice between staying in the university sector and maybe carrying on education or doing something like that, or, you know, going into the real world and testing what I'd done for the last 5 years in Sweden. And the reality was it was a low level. It was the 4th tier. So, you know, there was the bottom and then there was quite a bit below, and that's where we started. But it ended up being the best thing that I've ever done.
And is going abroad to coach something you would advise young coaches, maybe some of our students these days, to try and do?
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got the chance. I mean, I was lucky. I suppose lucky, but I also, my pathway meant that I was at least considered for the opportunity, because I'd done my degree, I'd done my master's degree. I was coaching in education. It was a slightly different path. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to get the opportunities. It's hard to get the opportunities anywhere, because there's so many people that want to coach and there's not that many jobs out, is the reality. But I think if you can, and an opportunity does come, then I would seriously consider it, providing it fits with the family, because it's not only a football experience, but it's a life experience as well, which, like I said, I wouldn't swap for anything.
Obviously, after Östersund, you came back to the UK, to Swansea. How was that adjustment coming from obviously 6-7 years Swedish football back into the kind of the British football environment?
Yeah, it was. I would say it was tough for lots of reasons. I mean, we you know, Östersund was our home. You know, we left England when my eldest was 11 months old, and then by the time we left Sweden, he was 7 and a half. We had twins born in Sweden, so it became our home. And obviously, because of what we'd done in Östersund, I was very safe as a head coach. And obviously, in football, security is not something that you really align with being a football coach. And I suppose there's the trauma of leaving somewhere that you're really happy from a family perspective, professional perspective, for the opportunity to work back in the UK. But you know that there's quite a lot of, there's more insecurity, there's more instability because of the nature of football over here, and you have to prove yourself again, all that sort of stuff. I mean, and I think the choice of Swansea was because philosophically there was a fit, again, I use that word, but in terms of they had a playing style that they got to the Premier League using, and then they lost it and they got relegated and they wanted to get that back. So for me, it was quite a good one to go into, because it seemed like there was at least a little fit there. But then obviously when you're relegated from the Premier League, there's all sorts of financial implications that you have to deal with that probably I didn't know the full ins and outs of when I'm making my decision to leave Sweden. So I would say it was a really tough year, in that you go from working in Sweden to within 4 weeks starting the championship season. You're trying to work out everything about the championship, everything about the club, and continually the club's changing because the economic situation at the club is so different and so complex. So it became a really, really challenging year, but a really enjoyable one. It's a fantastic football club, Swansea City, with great people, but an incredible, stimulating learning experience as well.
So would you say then, because you was at Swansea for a year, then you joined Brighton, was that transition from Swansea to Brighton easier professionally and personally than coming from Sweden to Swansea?
Yeah, I'd like to say yes, but probably there's a little bit of no as well. I think because I think the Premier League is so demanding, and you go from I suppose philosophically there's a playing style that people believed in. So at Brighton, you're replacing Chris Hughton, had done a fantastic job, kept him in the Premier League, but with a different playing style. So you have to change the playing style a little bit. That's quite challenging, certainly in the Premier League, because the opposition, the level of the opponent is so high. And, you know, the team had finished with 36 points the season before. So whilst moving from Wales to England was relatively straightforward, I would say the football challenge was equally as big, because of just the demands in the Premier League.
Is what So this is your third season, just started your third season at Brighton.
Third season, yeah.
And what do you? Obviously, they're an established Premier League club now. What does success look like for Brighton this season in your eyes?
Well, yeah, people often use the term established Premier League, and I always say that I think there's about 8 teams that are established Premier League teams, and everybody else is fighting to stay in the Premier League. And that's why it's so good. That's why the league is so good. Swansea City, for example, were in the Premier League for 7 years, got relegated. Bournemouth recently, Watford recently. It's just so competitive that for us, we need to make sure that we understand that every year. And always we're trying to improve. And always we're trying to improve in terms of our playing style, in terms of how we're playing, in terms of the points we get. Because ultimately that's important. But we've got an idea in terms of how we want to develop the club. I think how we use our academy, how we use our recruitment. We're not going to ever be a top 10 spending team or club. So we have to use whatever we spend wisely, which means we take a few more risks, if you like, in the transfer market of players that haven't quite got to the level yet, that we have to try and help get to the level. So it's a process, really, I would say, of continually trying to improve what you've done the previous year. And, this year we've made a big sale, which was important for us in terms of helping us recruit the next batch of players, but also to carry on improving the team as well. But yeah, I'm reluctant to. I certainly wouldn't refer to us as an established Premier League team.
Fair enough. I'll give you that one. So, in terms of you mentioned about the Premier League being so competitive, is that what makes it such a unique environment to coach and work in? Do you think? Because there really is that kind of anyone can beat anyone kind of mentality.
Yeah, and I think it's just the level of player. Is if you look now, across the world where players are going and the money that's been spent, for example, the knock on to that is the opponent, the teams on the pitch against you. If you get something wrong, if you're not quite at the level that you need to be, if you just have an off day, the Premier League more than any other league can punish you. Certainly from what I've experienced, sometimes in the Championship or sometimes in Sweden, you can have an off day and you can get away with it a little bit. I think in the Premier League, less so, and you'd expect that as the higher you go, the more the margins are so small, and so yeah. There's, as I said, it's a cliche. There's no easy games. There's no games that you think, okay, this is 3 points for us here. This should be this is a home banker. There's none of that. Every single game is a fight. Every single game you have to be at your max, and as a result of that, that's what makes it the best league in the world, I think.
So how do you kind of look on your coaching journey so far? How do you reflect on it? How would you describe it from, I suppose, maybe your university coaching days, going to Sweden and now also managing the Premier League at a semi-established Premier League club, don't you?
Yeah,
how do you reflect on all that?
Well, I mean, I look back and I, I'm, I don't know how to use the word proud, but I've come a long way, and I've come a long way, I think, by remembering that I'm a coach. I'm here to try and help the team. I'm here to try and help the players. I'm here to try and help the club to improve. And at the same time, I want to improve myself, and that's been the fundamental path that I've been on. I think when you're a coach at a football club, you've got to put yourself and your own ego and your own ambition to one side and do what the right thing for the football club is, which I think I've done for pretty much the majority of my career. Like I said, I've been lucky along the way, which I think everybody needs. But it's been incredible. I mean, I'm so grateful for it. I was lucky enough to be a professional footballer for 13 years, but this coaching journey I think has given me a lot more in terms of fulfillment, a lot more in terms of happiness, a lot more in terms of challenge. So I'm just really, really grateful for it, and grateful to football, grateful to all the clubs that have given me an opportunity, to all the people that I've met. Feel very, very lucky.
Do you feel like a bit of a flag bearer for kind of young, progressive British coaches? You're coaching at the top level, and we hear sometimes maybe not enough young British coaches are given those opportunities. Do you feel like there's a bit of a responsibility on yourself to do well because of that?
I've never really thought about that, to be honest. I think you can only do your best. You can only be yourself. And like I said, I think for some other people, my path wouldn't be the right path for them. But I think the most important thing is that, like I said earlier, that you realize if you're going to be a coach, if you want to be a coach, it's about helping people. It's about trying to improve them. It's about trying to help the team. I think too often we refer to things as a result. We're in a results business, which of course we are, but we're also in a people business. And I think understanding people, managing people is really, really important. And that has always been my focus. That's always been my foundation, if you like, for how we try to work and how we try to improve. I understand you have to get enough wins and you have to get enough results that keeps you in a job. That's the reality of it. But in terms of whether I provide any inspiration or a flag bearer from anybody else, I'm not sure. But all I can do is be myself and try and be as good as I can be, and hopefully that can help others to think about their own career and their own path and what's right for them.
Lovely. Graham, I've got one more question for you, and then I'll let you go. We've got a university full of students. Some want to be coaches, and they want to work in sports media, sports business. But what one piece of key advice could you give them to go on and achieve and succeed in football or the sports industry?
Well, I'd probably touch on what I said earlier about knowing themselves. I think self-awareness is huge. And I think that's the platform for everything. But I will also say that we're in a culture and an environment where winning is important, and we judge ourselves on success by results and winning and losing. And I think you have to remember that if you're going on this journey and you want to improve and you want to get better and you want to have ambition, that you have to deal with failure, you have to deal with setback, and you have to be prepared for that. And I think that's why the more you know yourself, the more you're able to deal with that. Because as much as we want to win and we like this feeling of success and winning, in sports, you have to deal with the other side of it, and not let that set you back, not let that deter you from what you want to do. Believe in yourself, work hard, understand yourself, and be grateful.
Grandpa, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem. Thank you.